The Errol Spence Leonard Bundu fight last Sunday drew a total of 6 million viewers on the PBC on NBC show. That is a record for PBC so far. It has to be said though, part of the reason why the viewing figures were so high is because the show immediately followed the men's Olympic basketball final, in which the United States were taking part and obviously won. And basketball being a very big sport in the United States, a lot of those people who watched that final just by, the PBC show being in the right place at the right time, a lot of those people who watched the final would have ended up spilling over and watching the Errol Spence fight. Now, some people might say, well, these are people who just forgot to turn their TVs off after watching the basketball. And perhaps there is an element of that as well. But according to the Los Angeles Times, the audience that the PBC show drew retained 75% during the duration of the boxing show. So, in other words, 75% of the people who were watching the PBC show at the beginning were still watching it at the end. That's obviously a very good sign. And regardless of how the show managed to get those type of numbers, it has exposed boxing to a larger audience than ever on PBC. And that's obviously a good thing, because even if somebody ended up watching that show by accident, they may have become a fan of Errol Spence or PBC as a result of it. So this is obviously very, very good news. And Errol Spence's career will probably get a boost from this. He's the up-and-coming rising star in the welterweight division. I think very highly of him. A lot of people are starting to come around to that same viewpoint on Errol Spence. So I'm sure he'll notice, a difference here. Maybe he'll get some interviews and what have you. I know he's originally from New York, I believe, from New York State, not New York City, but he grew up in Texas, but he sees New York as his second home. So I think it may be prudent of Errol Spence to try and get on some media platforms in New York, since he was, I don't know if he's still there, but since he was up there for the Leonard Bundu fight, I don't know if he did any type of media appearances on radio, television, that type of stuff. You know, those radio shows that do like, hip hop music, like Hot 97 and all those kind of things. If you can get on any of those media platforms, it would certainly help boost his profile. He's a young guy, so he needs to get young kids, young people his age group on board following him. So we'll see where it goes. And as I say, definitely a good look for PBC. I'm sure they planned that strategically. I'm sure they planned strategically to have Errol Spence on directly after the men's basketball final. Or perhaps the television network decided that's the slot they would put it in. I don't know. Either way, it's a good look. And, anything that improves the popularity of boxing, that increases the popularity of boxing, that's something I'll always support. I don't care if I don't live in that country. I don't live in the United States, but I want boxing to be more popular worldwide. That's why I'm such a big advocate of PBC. Because PBC, again, there are people who have this irrational, illogical hatred of Al Heyman and therefore PBC. It's as simple as this as far as I'm concerned. You're not a boxing fan if you hate PBC. You're just not a boxing fan. PBC's had some great fights on it. And I'm not saying Al Heyman is infallible. No promoter is infallible. Although, Heyman's not officially a promoter. No boxing figure, let's just say that, in Heyman's position is infallible. They all do wrong and right. But overall, PBC has been fantastic for boxing. It has broken the stranglehold that the other networks, mainly HBO and Showtime, had over boxing, and it has lifted the paywall. So now the general public can watch boxing without having to pay for it. And that is vitally important for the future of the sport. So, overall, Al Heyman has done far more good than bad. Far more. He's been one of the best things I've seen happen to boxing, actually. And, you know, before this sounds like an Al Heyman advertisement, somebody who's been paid off by Al Heyman. Again, as I always say, nobody, and this extends to promoters too, or, you know, so-called advisors, nobody is below praise and nobody is above criticism. If Al Heyman does something which I think warrants criticism, I'll certainly be the first person to criticize him. You know, but I'm just looking at things objectively, and he is doing great things for the sport of boxing. PBC's great, and yeah, it's a very, very good look for Errol Spence, drawing 6 million viewers. Now, for people in the UK who are old enough to remember the 90s era in British boxing, 6 million don't seem like a lot. I remember watching Nigel Benn versus Gerald McClellan on ITV. That got 17 million viewers. And this, you know, this is in the UK, a country that is much smaller than the United States. A country with a population of about 60 million as opposed to 300 million. So if a country as small as 60 million is getting 17 million viewers on network television, then you look at 6 million for Errol Spence's fight and you think, wow, that's not a lot of, that's not a lot of people. The population of America is like what, 4 or 5 times bigger than the population of the UK. So they should be getting 4 or 5 times the viewing figures, you would have thought, you know, but they're not yet. So Britain is certainly still ahead of America in terms of the popularity of boxing at this point in time. Hopefully America will catch up. I enjoyed the days when America was a primary sport. What I mean by that is one of the main sports. I enjoyed the days when it was that type of sport in the United States, because the United States was producing so many fantastic fighters as a result of that, as a result of the popularity of the sport. So anyway, let me not digress too much and ramble on for too long. I'm going to end this video right here. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about everything I talked about in this video. All right? It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.